Hello, hi there, Nisha. Good evening.
गुड इवनिंग सर।
कैसे हो? क्या हो रहा है?
कुछ नहीं सर, बस अभी आई थी लेट।
छोटी दिवाली, बड़ी दिवाली?
छोटी।
Good, nice.
हैप्पी दीपावली सर।
Oh yes, you too as well. So what else is happening there? How's everything?
हाँ सब ठीक है सर। अभी लाइटनिंग वाइटनिंग पूजा की तैयारी एंड ऑल सब यही सब चल रहा है।
अच्छा, ठीक है. Good. So all ready for the conference? You presenting now? The conference?
सर कॉन्फ्रेंस विच?
The IAPST conference coming up, virtual वाला.
IAPSD नहीं, मैंने एनरोल तो नहीं किया सर उसके लिए। सर
ठीक
वेयर
है.
इट इज लाइक दिस ईयर?
Sorry?
मौलाना आजाद इज होस्टिंग ना दिस टाइम?
No. This is the national conference. Hosted by the head office itself. So since it's happening virtual, so they are having, I think, from third week of November. Anyways, where are you presently working at, Nisha? What update at your side?
सर अभी लेडी हार्डिंग न्यूनेटोलॉजी डिपार्टमेंट आईसीयू में हूँ। There some clinical trial is going on for 7-day versus 14-day antibiotic trial.
Okay, nice. Good. Good to hear you after so long.
I've seen like sir और मैं ही है, मैंने कहा I can like talk to sir meanwhile. फिर आपका वो background musical चल रहा था, so I didn't disturb you.
ठीक है. Anyways, good to have you, Nisha. It's been a while. I think nice to hear you after so long.
Same here, sir.
Okay, we have since it's a festival, so they're going to be latecomers for the session.
और देखो मैं सबसे लेट कमर होने के बाद फर्स्ट आई हूँ।
That's okay. Okay, we have.
पहले मैं ही करती थी।
Yes. Yeah, we have Dr. Kainath who's just joined in. Yes, Dr. Kainath is a postgraduate.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Kainath. Yes.
Happy Diwali.
Oh yes. Thank you, and same to you as well.
Thank you,
Okay.
sir.
I think we have Susan ma'am who just joined a while ago. Okay. Hello, Ranjana. I think Ranjana is a final year undergraduate from Chhattisgarh, if I'm not mistaken. Quickly, if you can say hi to us, Ranjana. There is Dr. Nisha there, my PG junior, now working as faculty in Lady Harding. We have Kainath here, a postgraduate student. Okay. Excuse my voice because I have a slight cold which I've got. Happens to be raining horrendously here, so the weather's a little bad. Okay, hi, Ashna has just joined in the session. Hi, Ashna.
Hi, good evening, sir.
Good evening. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm just setting up the space, then I'll switch on the camera if that's okay.
Sure. Yes, please. Take your time.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's go to Dr. Ariba, sorry. Yes, Dr. Ariba. So what is happening in your PG room? How is your session going?
So it's going amazing. So I wanted to ask you something. When will you think the third wave will come? Like, do you have any idea?
Most of epidemiologists have a sort of like a prediction that it is expected to be sometime in mid-March, maybe mid-March. That's when, I mean, this is what skeptical epidemiologists say, going by the experts. But then, most of the sociologists have a different view. They say that probably end of this year itself, the beginning of fall. So maybe
November,
earlier.
yeah, and November and the beginning of December.
Yes, correct. So that's what sociologists say. Given the trend in the disease, how it's behaved over the last year and a half. So it's been very, very wavering in terms of when we've hit the peak of the disease and how we've managed to mitigate it. So in India, it's very difficult because we have very few predictors in terms of how the disease is shaping up. But nevertheless, I think we must not have a callous attitude towards it and continue to be protected, in spite of the vaccines and everything. I think it's always better to go for primary prevention. Like they say, that is the ultimate nail in the coffin for the COVID virus. So let's just keep our fingers crossed. Let's just hope everything is manageable. through the years. Of course, I mean, the virus has come back more wiser and more stronger from last year. So let's just hope that we've also evolved in how we tackle public health situations like this.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Yes, Dr. Amber is here. Hi, Amber. How are you?
Hello, Denzy sir. How are you?
Hello. I'm good. I'm good, Amber. So good to hear you after such a long time. Mm, all
Sir,
right.
actually, we have been busy with exams and all that stuff, and still exams haven't been done. They
Mhm.
told that exams shall be done before Diwali, but still some problems happened. And actually, merger of all the UP colleges in UP is getting going on. Atal Bihari University is taking all the dental colleges under itself, so some problems are
Oh,
happening.
okay, okay. So you are yet to give your final year exams?
Yes,
Right?
sir.
Your PG exams, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
I
okay.
have to.
All right. So you are on probation on study leave right now. So you're supposed to be
Yeah,
preparing.
kind of.
Okay, okay. Let's just hope that gets in quickly as well. Okay, let's just say hi to everybody else who's come in. Yes, Dr. Sahar is here. Hi, Sahar. Uh, I can
Hello,
see.
sir.
I think. Hello, hello. Good evening, Sahar.
Good evening,
Nice.
sir. Happy Diwali.
Oh, yes, yes. Happy Diwali to everybody else here as well. Good to have everybody there. Okay. How's the weather up north, guys? How's it like? Have the winter set in?
Yes, sir.
How's it? Okay. Here it is still continuously pouring every day. Like most of South India is under rains. So I mean, this is supposed to be the northeast retreating monsoon. So it usually hits the coast of Chennai and then Bombay. And yes, I think like to say, everything has been very unpredictable this year, considering that monsoons have been delayed and everything. So I was wondering how was the winters in North India, because it is terribly cold, right? November, December onwards.
Yes, sir. It had started.
Hmm. Okay, good. All right. Thank you all so much for joining in. I think we'll just wait for a couple of minutes before we can start off this session today. I think I'd like to take some opening thoughts on everyone who's here, because we have a mixed bag. We have people who are presently on the verge of completing the PG. We have also someone who just completed the post graduation. Let's hear from Dr. Nisha. Yes, Dr. Nisha, I think if you could share your thoughts on how was it when when you just completed your post graduation and entered the field of public health dentistry. So, I mean, anybody else also can chip into this. Yes, Nisha, can you share your thoughts on that?
Hello.
Yes, Nisha.
Audible, sir.
Yeah, so I was asking, what were your thoughts and perceptions as soon as you completed PG? Where would you apply and how was it? I mean, this is almost 3-4 years ago, right?
No, sir. Almost like
5 years
2007.
it's been.
I have exactly
17.
17. I have
Hmm.
just. Sir, actually, when I have completed during my MDS time, first thing, like, it was very awesome to be a part of Bapuji Dental College. We but the only thing that I feel was lacking over there is, like, they put more focus on public health, sorry, dentistry part, and they just left behind the public health part. So the
Hmm.
statistics or the public health things, that gradually we learn. And
Hmm.
the soon after my MDS, when I came to the real world, actually, then I thought, like, I randomly, like, I was pretty much fortunate in that case, because I just got the PGI Chandigarh job first as my, like, as my first job opportunity, and
Mhm.
it was all coincidental for my case. So I nothing I have much to share, but now, like, since after 5 years, I can share my experiences being in research, because I thought, like, we need to we need to give the equal importance to research part, since most of the BDS, they are not aware of that. Soon after the BDS, we can go for research as well. There are so many organizations, and the post for which a BDS candidate is also eligible, like senior research fellow or junior research fellow. So they can build up their career in altogether a new arena for them. Like,
Okay.
so Abhi, I feel like the tutors and the profs or the mentors, they need to focus and they need to consider this public health part also, and as well as they need to give a foundation for the research thing, so that
Absolutely.
we can excel in this.
Yes, that's something very relevant Nisha has brought up for discussion today. And I also strongly believe so that we need to address public health along with dentistry. And that's the reason we have our degrees as public health dentistry. So it encompasses the whole of dentistry and the application of public health principles to that. So I think a little bit on that. And in fact, the reason why I asked Nisha about this is because today we shall be discussing about the competencies, what is really required for a public health dentist of the 21st century. So I think I would really take away the point of emphasis on public health and more impetus given to research, because therein lies most of our job opportunities. And like they say, the world deems you to be having a certain level of proficiency in the field of research and projects in terms related to epidemiological studies or field studies and so on and so forth. So thank you so much, Nisha, for those thoughts. I think I'll quickly go on to Dr. Sahar. Yes, Sahar, if you could share your thoughts on this, that what you think it was and what moment of realization have you entered? You're someone who just completed post-graduation very recently. Yes, Sahar, are you there? Okay. Let me go on to Amber for a minute now. Yes, Amber. Now you are someone who is about on the verge of giving her examinations, right? So, what are the
Yes.
thoughts flashing across in your mind? What is required of me? How do I build my CV? What am I good at? Could you share some thoughts on that, please?
So what Nisha ma'am said,
Mm-hmm.
our degree is of public health dentistry. What I consider, that I feel that we are better than MPH people. A lot of jobs, public health consultancy jobs, and all those jobs, MPH people are coming and taking BDS and MPH. We did MDS for 3 years. They did MPH only for 2 years. But why are they taking all the jobs? Why are we not getting all the jobs? The problem lies in the fact that we are not good in research part. We have to focus more on public health part also. We are lacking in that. In our colleges, the focus is more on dentistry part, preventive dentistry, going on camps. We are not building ourselves in the research field. That's the one main thing I found. I have given a lot of interviews for NHM. I gave exam for NHM Chennai, Tamil Nadu also. Then I went for interview for NHM Uttarakhand also. We are lacking in public health part. That's the main problem.
Yes. So when you
We
talk
should be
about
better than MPH people, sir. We should be, but we are not. We did 1 year extra than them, but still they are taking all the jobs.
okay. Now, this is a very relevant thing which Amber has raised, right? Now, when it comes to job opportunities, let me just share what I have through years of exposure to this, right? Is that probably we are not positioned in such a manner, in fact, that we need to make it evidently clear that we are trained in these principles and we have to position ourselves. Okay, we still are seen as an extension of the dental college who is working in the field. Okay, like Amber mentioned, it's more onus and more impetus needs to be given to the public health aspect of it. In fact, many of our students themselves, it's a very funny thing that we have the specialty which is responsible to create awareness, but there's very little to or no awareness on our subject itself. What is expected of us, and what is actually required from all of us in this direction. So we'll definitely work on those aspects as well today in our session. So thank you, Amber, for your thoughts. So I'd like to go on to Ashna here. Ashna is someone who's been trying to make her own mark. Yes, Ashna.
Yeah, thank you so much for giving the mic to me, sir. And as I see public health dentistry, I see it not as a non-clinical branch of dentistry, as people most often say. I see it as dentistry plus public health. So we are doctors with the public health exposure and experience and the ability to work in the public health sector. And so if you allow me to share a screen, sir, I would like to
Yes,
share a
yes.
few slides if that's
Please,
possible.
please. Yeah, go ahead.
Cool. So this is what is my perspective of public health dentistry. I call it the backpack branch of dentistry. Why I call it the backpack branch of dentistry? Because all these skills that we learn during our MDS are there in that bag, and you can just carry your bag anywhere you want to go, and apply those skills and do any kind of job that you want to do. If that's true, you can put in the chat box if that's true. So, and how I see public health dentistry is these are the subjects in public health dentistry. This is just 9 subjects that I've listed out here. And if you can see, there is 1 or 2 jobs at least for each subject that we have here. If you read epidemiology, you can be an epidemiologist, you can be an outbreak investigator. If you read statistics, you can be a data analyst or a biostatistician. If you read research methodology, you can be a research associate, research assistant, or a scientist, like we were talking about just now. If you read about sociology, you can be a social scientist, a public health researcher, whatnot. So you can just see the list of jobs of opportunities according to the subjects that you read in public health dentistry. If that is not enough, tell me what is. And on that note, I would like to hand over the mic to sir.
Thank you so much, Ashna. I think you've put it in a very, very attractive fashion, and actually stemming out from various disciplines. When we read public health dentistry, when we're introduced to the khichdi of PhD, I would say, because it's like a mission of so many disciplines together. It probably has more number of disciplines being a part of it rather than any other field for that matter. So given all these perspectives, that it's how you build upon it. In fact, the reason why I wanted to take up today's session was in a way to look up into yourself, introspect that what are the qualities in each of us which sort of relates to a certain aspect in the specialty. Okay, like with wonderful backdrop like how Ashna gave, right? The whole backpack of dentistry. There are so many things, and they cannot be possibly anyone who would not relate to either 1 or 2 aspects of public health dentistry. There's got to be something which you would relate, probably related to research, or be it economics, or be it planning and management. There's so much for everyone. Okay, you might like to have the entire thali, with different kinds of foods and curries and all of these, but you would definitely pick on some of these things. So that would be the basic backdrop, what we'd like to highlight today. Thank you so much, Ashna, for that. And we also have Dr. Sonam. Yes, Dr. Sonam, if you could just quickly say hi to the audience here. And we have Dr. Iram also here, Iram Asan. Yes, I believe she recently completed her post-graduation. Quickly introduce yourselves to everybody here. It's a small group, so I think it's better we like to keep it like a discussion platform. All right. So what it takes us to actually call ourselves the public health dentists for the 21st century. Okay. Now, this was something which I discovered after I completed my post-graduation. Of course, feel free to give in your thoughts in between the presentation, and I'll just keep it really crisp and simple. But here's something which I've put together, referring the American Association of Public Health Dentistry's competency statements, which gives you the intent and it gives you the objectives. That what are we required to actually do? Whether in terms of doing random things over the period of 3 years in post-graduation to actually concretizing on what is really important. Okay, so like I say, if you are somewhat aware of what is required from you, then it would be much easier for you to hone up and polish your skills. in terms of working towards a goal. Now, PG is not something where you end up fishing in the middle of the ocean, not knowing where you're headed to. That's not how it's supposed to be. The moment you enter post graduation, yes, you go through that process, and then you discover that, okay, these are the things which I'll be relatively better at, and these are the things which I may not really have the skills. But more importantly, what is required, like a basic level of efficiency in certain competencies. Okay, this word competency is what is actually the keyword for today. Okay, now since we have a small group here, I think we can have a small activity. Okay, so I want everybody to please take out their chat boxes and start putting in words, adjectives, whatever you all think. What, according to you or yourself, is your strength, which makes you suitable for the field of public health dentistry? You're already there in that. Some of you are in the process of completing. Some of you have already completed. All right. So quickly, I think if you could start off with the skill set. Okay, it could be anything. If you're good at communication, type in so. If you think you're good at leadership, if you're good at managing people, if you're good at collaborating. So I would want to get some responses from the audience as to what, according to yourself, you think that is your strength. Okay, tailor-made. Now, I'll tell you why I'm doing this after we finish this exercise. Okay, good. Yes, Amber. She's put in strengths, and I'm waiting for your response. Everybody, meanwhile, I think you can do it. Okay. Problem solving is your strength. Good. Ashna says that managing people and programs with leadership. Excellent. Okay. What are the other strengths we can see? Communication. Okay. Actually, you'll notice that these are all the competencies around which the discipline is actually built upon. Okay, so when you look at this, there are various things we think or we perceive that this is good in each of us or in some of us, which is eventually help us in terms of fully maximizing the potential of public health dentistry. Okay, quick thinking, yes, you need to do on the spot. Dr. Iram says managing people. Okay, apparently a lot of them are very good at managing people. That's let me tell you, that's one of the core competencies. Okay, good. All right. Any more responses? Quickly put it in the chat box. What, according to you, is your strength? Okay. Now let's go to the weaknesses. Okay. Now, weakness or weaknesses. What do you think you are not so good at? Okay, let's see your responses there. Amber, what do you think? You say your strength is managing people. Time management, very good. Okay, that's a very honest answer, because along with managing people comes the burden of time, time management. Okay, it's important how we define this, because for an effective resume or for an effective positioning in the market, you need to know your strengths, weaknesses, and opportunities and threats, right? And this is a basic SWOT analysis, which would be the need of the hour. Okay. Ariba says that she's too emotional. Okay, that's also a very valid point. Relating to your social conscience, you could be also too connected or too invested in what you're doing. All right. Ashna says perfection, which cannot be achieved every time in public. And this is a very, very good point, Ashna. I think we need to clearly understand, I would not call it the limitation of public health dentistry, but given the situation, this is a humongous task, And when you're putting together so many people and trying to achieve, the outcomes are usually not palpable and usually not ascertainable when it comes to any individual program or anything of that sort. Okay, so if you're someone who's striving for perfection, yes, you need to go towards that, but it cannot be achieved every time in public health. And most of the public health programs and major milestones over the last 100 200 years have been a clear testament to that. Okay, I would put it this way, that public health is not meant to be perfect. Okay, there are many ways to perfect public health. All right. Perfecting public health, like I said, is you're going to work on various domains and aspects and details of that. But don't think that this is a utopian concept where you're going to achieve 100% of all the indicators, eliminate all the oral health and burden of disease. No, it's not going to happen. Okay, good. That's a very encouraging participation. Now, what are the opportunities y'all think of? Okay, that is the way forward where we are yet to explore in public health dentistry. The opportunities for public health dentistry or public health dentists. Yes, guys, I think you can put in your answers there. Okay, public health is to do jugaad. Okay, anyhow, right? Anyhow, try to fit in and get this done. And Indians are very good at jugaad. Great. All right. Okay. We also have Dr. Faisal who's joined us here. Hi, Faisal. How are you? Glad you could join us today. Thank you so much for coming. We have to find a means to get the work done. Okay, great. Fine. All right. This is more like working your way through the system, right? The reason why I describe this as an opportunity, or many of them feel in that direction. Ariba says tourism and health finance. Yes, there's plenty of work to be done in that. These are the relatively unexplored areas of public health dentistry. Okay, so this is in fact the need of the hour. Okay, now opportunities exploring the digital techniques in PhD. Yes, okay, that is again coming from someone who has ventured her way into the digital world. Ashna says exploring the digital techniques because yes, when your audience, when your population is available online, be it your students or be it your communities or be it your cohorts, then it's just about time that the public health professionals come online, or rather utilize the digital space to the fullest. So I totally second that opinion, what Ashna is sharing in. Okay. Any other opportunities, guys, which you all think we need to map out or look in that direction? Please do drop it in the chat box. Okay. Pharmacovigilance, very good. Okay. This is really encouraging, the kind of responses you all are giving. I think this is a very well informed audience here to take on to the challenges of the 21st century. Okay. And let's be honest, guys, we do not live in a world where we have the luxury of jobs waiting for us, or probably, quote unquote, a settled way of life. We do not belong to a generation where things are or affairs are in place, and probably an MDS would enable them to get into jobs and settle for life. We belong to a generation which is more dependent upon how much horizontal and lateral integration we have with the specialty, and for that we need to identify what we are good and bad at. All right, last, coming to the threats, guys. Okay, now what are the things which you guys think are absolute threats to the flourishing of the specialty of a public health dentist? Something which we cannot overcome. There's got to be something. It's not like everything seems invincible. It doesn't really happen that way. So there would be certain areas, I think, which we consider as threat. So please put it in the chat box. Good evening, Dr. Vikrant sir. Glad you could join us here. Okay, Vikrant sir is here. I think we'll really benefit from his thoughts as well. Okay. Threats, interest, sustenance in the subject. Absolutely taken, because it's important to sustain the amount of interest, because if it comes across as something which doesn't evoke curiosity and doesn't put this in learners on a tangent of learning, which is more exploratory, yes, that will become a threat. And that is in fact already we've been seeing the repercussions. People are not taking up post-graduation in public health dentistry. That is a immediate threat we have to counter. Okay, and this is in the interest of the specialty at large. I'm sorry. Okay, Amber says perfect disaster. Okay, all right, a lot of misinformation about the subject at UG level. Okay, I think we have nobody than ourselves to blame for that. Either we're not packaging the information, or we're not providing the relevant amount of the aspects of the subject at an undergraduate level, so it doesn't come across as something which is more appealing. All right, so social quality of life. Okay, yes, that's also a very relevant aspect of the specialty. Okay. Then I can see in the chat box. Yes. Yes, Vikrant sir.
Hi, hi, Denzy.
Hi, sir. Hi, sir.
I'm sorry. Happy Diwali. Happy Diwali to all of you.
Yes. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Acha, I will be hearing. Was very keen to hear, but I just
Yeah.
got back from work. It's as
Okay.
usual, business. But then I was just thinking, I will
Mhm.
listen to some more of your thoughts and then
Yes.
try to thread in through because there are many thoughts running as everybody is pouring in ideas.
Yes. Yes.
And with regard to just disaster management, I just want to, good evening, Asna. Uh, I just want to add today only one of our letters to the editor has got accepted in an international journal, wherein we highlighted the declaration. As in we had a declaration through the IA PhD and the NIDM, uh, discussing regarding the role of dental professionals in disaster management. So that is something which we are very keen. Just someone had mentioned just now regarding disaster management.
Yes.
So I'll be listening to some more of your thoughts and then maybe just share a few more thoughts as we go by. And it's always nice to listen to you, Denzi, and particularly listening to you directly. Direct, they'll say, I would say, you know.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
So please carry on. I don't want to break the momentum. I'm sorry.
Okay. Surely, sir. Surely. I think stay connected. I think we're having a very interesting discussion here. So we were putting across, in fact, for people who just joined in, we also have Dr. Sumant Prasad, sir. Good evening, sir. It's lovely to have you. We have a couple
Good
of
evening.
undergraduates
Good
also.
evening. Good evening, Denzy.
Good evening, sir. How are you?
All fine, yeah. All fine.
Great, sir. So we were just having a small discussion for most of the bunch of students here, or rather, public health dentists, on what, according to each of us, is their strength, weakness, and opportunity and threat. So this is a SWOT analysis, what we're doing. So we're just trying to look back and introspect on what are the areas. So if you could just have a look at the chat box, you can find the responses. I would like to come to you towards the end of this, like just after I finish threats. I would want you to share your thoughts as well. Thank you so much, Suman sir, for joining in there. Okay, so getting back to the session here, right? I was just going to have these things. Yes. Uh, there's a response which says, yeah, people taking on paper PGs these days. Okay, that is something which is at an administrative level. Okay, definitely, it is a threat because even a little bit of damage to the quality of education or hampering that would in fact disturb the whole dynamics of it. So I think more stringent administrative controls are required. I think Dr. Iram says uncontrolled growth of private practice. Iram, could you elaborate on that point? Because I really want to explore that and see that how is private practice being endangered by any means whatsoever, and how is that a threat to us, as public health dentists? If you could just share your thoughts on that, either you can come online or you could just put it in the chat box. Okay, then we have UG conferences, workshops should be done by IPHD. Yes, I think we are doing sufficiently. I think, or more so, just started off the process. Great. Okay. So I think, pardon me if I've left out any of the other responses, but if I have to conclude what has been pouring in the chat box since quite a while here, is we fairly understand all our strengths, right? That what are we good at and how are we going to cope up with the requirements of the profession. Okay, as public health dentists, yes, managing people or leading by examples would be the most relatable aspects of the specialty where we think we are fairly good at. Okay. Weaknesses, yes. Let's also accept the fact that we are not able to achieve that amount of desired perfection because there is nothing called an ideal situation in public health, let alone a clinical point of view or a diagnostic value of it. But in public health, yes, it's all about ensuring that a certain level of care is provided. And because it deals with principles of social justice, I think it's more about inclusiveness and universal health coverage or dental health coverage for everybody. There are various opportunities which the audience is already aware of. We had interesting things like pharmacovigilance being taught here, and tourism and finance and all of these aspects. So there is plenty of opportunities. It's how you look at it that way. And finally, I think most of them feel, in terms of threat, there are certain aspects which is, probably we're not putting across the right image of the specialty, or not getting in across the relevant aspects which make it more likable. Let's not forget the fact that at an undergraduation level, right, most of us have probably experienced this, or our friends, there are very few people who dislike public health dentistry, just for the matter of fact that it's too much of theory and too much of definitions. But I think I can safely say that at the level of a principal, at the level of in principle, looking at the profession or the department, there are many relatable aspects which are coming across as a very fun experience by undergraduates. They got to go on field trips, and there's a lot of interesting topic or chapters which bring them back memories of social studies in school. So I think we are not dealing with such a bad situation. Probably a lot needs to be done in that direction, uh, emphasizing the right aspects of public health dentistry at undergraduate level. Truly, I think there needs to be a lot to be done in that sense. Okay. Now, there is, of course, the whole idea that public health dentistry or dental public health, has undergone various transformative changes over the years. All right. Now, we clearly understand that this is the practice which serves the community as a patient rather than the individual alone. So, if you look at this word cloud here, there's plenty of things which are sort of, overlapping with each other, from community service to services research and policy making and biostatistics. Like I say, there's none like it actually. When you look at the whole profession, it represents a value system that it remains unique than any other specialty in dentistry. Okay. In fact, just putting in a matter of point of fact here is that most of the specialties of our dentistry are all dontics, right? I would still refer to as, everything related to the oral and the oral health tissues. But public health dentistry is the only specialty which has the wholesome word of dentistry attached to public health. All right. So here we are dealing with a lot of responsibilities and a lot of competencies which are essentially required by all of us to nurture and get this done. Okay. Now, here's a question, and to the open house here, that how many of us are actually doing it right? Okay. Now, when I say doing it right, that there are various ways to look at this. Okay. Either you could be, getting it done anyhow, or doing it in the right manner of fashion. Okay. Now, all of us here come from various backgrounds and different colleges and institutions in different places in the country. All right. So we're getting to notice that all of us are practicing some amount of public health dentistry in our own capacities. But how many of us are actually doing it in the right manner? That what it is required to be actually thought of. All right. Let me just take a little moment and say hi to Dr. Anita ma'am. Yes. Hi, Anita ma'am. So good you could be here. I think we are going to hear from you as
Hello,
well.
good evening.
Good
Good
evening.
evening.
Great, great. Great you could
Go
join
on, go
us.
on.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. I think if you could stay back to the session, I think we can hear from you. Thank you. Okay. Coming back to what I was saying, how many of us are actually doing it in the right fashion? All right. Let's say you are a postgraduate second year or finally a postgraduate. You wake up in the morning, you go to college, you present your seminar, you do your JC, and then you pack your bags and go for a peripheral center and conduct your camps. Okay. There are various duties throughout the day and in a period of 3 years, which is your whole postgraduate curriculum, and henceforth, right? So it's about, are we doing enough justice to the core principles of public health dentistry? Okay, what is essentially built upon, or are we doing only token or topical service or lip service to certain aspects of it? All right, because this is the quintessential question when it comes to getting it done or doing it in the right fashion. Now, competencies here, when we talk about this, right? This is a pictographic representation, which you will notice, that it is usually a confluence of the skills what we develop and train over the years, the abilities which we are able to perform a certain task, or conduct a certain assessment or need of anything of that sort, backed by the domain of knowledge, right? So competency is going by the strict, the English definition of that is a ability of all of these things. All right. So if you are declaring yourself competent in a certain field or a specialty, because that's what your MDS gives you, right? And you may not be aware of that when you're actually being awarded a degree, a master's degree, and this is how the entire world views it, that you are competent with a certain level of expertise which you can demonstrate and you can also elucidate and provide to the entire population. All right. So there are certain questions which have to be addressed here. Why do we need competencies? Yes, because we have to demarcate for every profession, for every field and specialty, because based on that would be your hiring, would be your organizational development, and accordingly so on and so forth. Okay. The uses are to define or task most of your interviews, most of your, like Nisha mentioned right at the beginning of the session, your entry into national institutes are hugely determined by what are you fairly good at. Okay. And not just even good at, are you even competent enough to take up that task? And of course, the implications do follow. Now, let's come on, let's bring on the competencies which are required for dental public health specialists. And given the time and the age of the 21st century, all right, what are we really supposed to be proficient in? Okay. First and foremost, right, this word called managing, right? Now, I would put this way, right? Now, what exactly is required from us is we have to manage oral health programs for population health. Okay. Now, this is merely just beyond conducting a camp or an outreach program. Okay. This word manage comes with a huge responsibility that you are equally, individually, and collectively responsible for actions pertaining to that particular program. All right. That means the ability to manage is usually requires that highest level of efficiency demonstrated in a field setup. Okay, so you must understand that when you are required to manage, okay, either it could be health programs, it could be task force, it could be surveillance duties, anything of that sort, right? Oral health programs for the population health. Okay, it could be related to dental caries or it could be fluorosis. You must be having that ability. It's not about managerial skill, or rather the ability to manage people. Okay, now with this there comes a slider that says that don't manage people, just include them. Okay, this is, I think, by far most of them would have their own experiences and demonstrating this and saying that sir हमने ऐसे plan किया था but हो ही नहीं पा रहा है, और ऐसे काफी सिचुएशंस में कुछ ये करने जाते हैं कुछ और ही हो जाता है. मतलब कितना डिफिकल्ट है ना लोगों को मैनेज करना. But the matter of fact is, you are not expected to manage people. All right, you in a strictly public health terminology, if you have to talk about management, is you have to ensure there is a job description for each of them, who knows what to do, or rather, how they're supposed to perform and function. Okay, so relegation of duties, principles of administration, how you have to, give out responsibilities, all of these things are at the core of management skills. All right, so if you think you're good at managing people, that might be a people skill. Okay, that may not necessarily make you very good at health planning and career management. All right, so if you're able to take up responsibilities and come up with an old plan of action, who does what, and then whether you're micromanaging or you're macromanaging in any level of administration given, but understand that you will not be able to make people work as you want. Okay, you just have to include them, give out the duties, and also respect that basic dignity of labor which each of them carry with themselves. All right, so this is what I mean when I say that ability to manage is a core oral health component for your population general health. Next is the keyword evaluate. Okay, now when we talk about evaluation or evaluate, all right, the first thing is looking back. All right, now for public health dentists or dental public health professionals, the system of care, okay, which impacts your oral health. Now it could be something like a national oral health policy, or could be like a Delta dental plan, or could be a certain provision of dental coverage under the NHS. There are systems of care which impact oral health. Okay, you should be having the ability to evaluate these, because let's get this very, very clear. Okay, this is basic economics. All right, anything, evaluate, because what gets measured actually gets produced. Okay, if you're not going to have a check on how things are being done and whether they've been following the best possible manner, or they have been done full justice to their fullest outcome, you will not be able to run a system of the mill. All right. And when I say this, evaluation is you must be able to monitor, either by means. I'll give you a classical example of auditing, right? What we have in terms of clinical outcomes, we do clinical audits. Okay. Now, public health expenditure or public health systems, they actually demand a certain level of evaluatory mechanisms or frameworks, which you must be having a fair amount of knowledge about. Okay. Now, it's not to say that it comes with rider like you need to be well versed in that. No, but you must understand what you're expected to evaluate. Okay. So the checks and balances, or sort of provide a yardstick when it comes to public health infrastructure, is that you must be in a position to evaluate all the oral health delivery systems which eventually are impacting the entire population. Now, after the first, which is manage, okay, the reason why I want you all to take home these keywords: first is manage, second is your evaluate, third is your demonstrate. Okay. Now, demonstrate here, I would say that in the practice of dental public health, okay, ethical decision making. Now, you must be wondering, and most of you would have read this during their examination and all of that, right? That ethical, or why is ethics making so much of noise? No, it's not like ethics just applies only to public health professionals. Okay. But let me just say, this is probably the only discipline which impacts the almost entirety of the world, right? When you talk about the practice of dental public health, it becomes imperative for us to demonstrate ethical decision making more than anyone else, because what's at stake, it's the population oral health. Okay. What's being funded, it's your public money, and who is responsible for it is public health professionals who stem out from the society. Okay. So demonstrating this ethical decision making, okay, because like they say, being a public health professional or a dental public health profession, it is but natural that you show certain amount of ethical decision making. Okay. And this is not an if or a but. Okay. It is supposed to be your forte of how you manage things. Now, you must required, or you must be required to develop, or come up and demonstrate that this decision making is done on morally and ethical grounds. Okay. Let's take the case and study that whether a certain community requires water fluoridation, or a certain area requires sealant coverage, or all of these things. So you are bound to be in situations where you have to effectively demonstrate this ethical decision making. Okay. So you need to know between what is for the greater good and what is in the evidence of harm. Okay. Like they say, anything even with the slightest evidence of harm is not included in public health measures, right? Like, for example, the vaccination, what protocol we have, right? It is morally and ethically right to vaccinate the entire population, because we are combating a virus which has not shown any signs of resistance, and this is an ethically and morally correct thing to do. All right. Now, that's why I say it's to know the difference between what you have a right to do and what is actually right to do. All right. This is the basic demonstration principle which you have to follow. Moving on to design. Okay. Now, you can see a picture of the entire world here, right? There are systems in place, right? Now, public health dentistry, a huge part of that, be it recording your indices, be it your oral health performers or your case histories, what are we essentially getting at? Okay, you're essentially getting at developing and designing a surveillance system so that you can monitor, you can measure the oral health status in a certain country and a geographic area, and also keep a note on the determinants. So when you look at this here, right, without data, you're just another person with an opinion. All right. So you need to have a lot of information, and information which is processed, which is collected in a very systematic fashion. Then you could actually put to use a lot of effective policies in that direction. Okay. This is what I say when I talk about the design of a oral health system. So this as actually some of the competencies which are very, very important. Now, coming to the last few competencies, which has been earmarked here, the ability to communicate. All right. Why is so much of noise being made around communication? All right. We say communication skills, and trust me, the clinicians will know more about this than public health professionals, because their entire business of dentistry depends upon the way they communicate. All right. what communication are we expected to do? As public health dentistry or dental professionals, our ability to communicate the oral and the public health issues. Okay, like I say, everyone can talk, but only a few can effectively communicate. Why this becomes important is because a public health professional becomes like an advocate, advocate for any kind of rights. Okay, so he has to put forth the right amount of information which is in the public interest and help the audience or the population make or arrive onto certain decisions. So we need someone who is, like a mouthpiece who can put across the oral and public health issues in a very, very effective manner. All right. So here I'm talking about communication. Either it could be a digital medium like this, or it could be any use of any kind of IEC material, or it could be the various media which is there, the mass media, the electronic media, and so on and so forth. Right. But let's remember here, communication is the core or one of the essential aspects of public health dentistry in our field. Finally, the ability to lead. Okay, why is it important? Why public health dentists have to develop or nurture leadership in each of us, right? That's because let's understand the fact that without having the ability to lead, and here I'm no way saying that you're required to be like a Superman or a Batman or maybe even a Desi superhero or who can put together a lot of things. No, you are required to collaborate on various things. Okay, and when you're collaborating, you have to demonstrate a certain level of leadership. Okay, now we all know that individually, however smart we might be, all right, it's always in coming together, like putting together the same thought process and reflecting our thoughts together is what we actually come out to something brilliant. All right, so if you have to achieve that brilliance in public health or dental public health issues, you must have the ability to lead. Okay, take up where it's responsible, be accountable for what you are standing for, represent a certain value and ecosystem, and most of all, lead collaborations on oral and public health issues. So anything in dentistry, okay, for example, if it's something about the snacking patterns or if it is about a fluoride issue in a community, stand up and actually speak up for that. All right, and collaborations on such things eventually, this is called the butterfly effect, that the flutter of a butterfly in one part of the world can actually cause a huge tsunami in the other part. So it's only when you start making some noise and start putting together people together and eventually leading on collaborations, you will be able to go in the longer run. So ability to lead is another very important session on that. Finally, the word advocacy or advocate. Okay, when you advocate something, you are standing for it. Okay, you are pushing forth a certain thought or certain value system. All right, and why is it important for public health dentists to behave like advocates? In fact, I don't know how many of you know this. If you open up the website of the American Dental Association, the ADA has branded itself as America's leading advocate on oral health. Okay, and this is not even public health dentistry. Why the reason they use this kind of word advocacy is because you're actually identifying that you have to put forth a certain agenda. All right, and that is in the interest of the entire population. So when you look at the public health policies, the legislations and regulations which are to protect and promote. Now, when I say the public's oral health, let's understand that today we have a court legislation to prevent the sale of tobacco that came into existence because someone had advocated for it. Okay, and we've come across this word advocacy. Someone who's an advocate for women's rights or for gender balance or for safer environment, working environments. So this word advocate or advocacy actually stems that when we as public health professionals take up issues. Okay, for example, the whole stigma of oral cancer, or it could be in terms of fluorosis, or going and pushing for healthier work environments or health promoting environments in schools. We have to protect and promote the public's oral health. Okay, and here I'm not talking about one disease or one condition, but we have to be the advocates of public health issues concerning the entire oral health status of the population. All right, essentially to change what is into what should actually be. All right, so you strongly feel for a certain emotion, you strongly feel that okay, I should be raising my voice against sale of some kind of confectionaries or sodas or maybe tobacco products in and around schools, you stand up for that. All right. So advocacy forms sort of into the fabric of every public health dentist what we have in practice, and that is what the essential point about advocacy is actually talk about. Finally, ability to critique. All right. Now, when I say ability to critique, is do not accept anything on the face of it. All right. And this is should be a competency of every public health dentist. In fact, today we have entered into an enormous world of research where there is so much available to that. All right. Today, there is no dearth of information. Okay. In fact, it's the information paradox that there is an overload of information. Now, when you are faced with an overload of information and there's so much of material around you, how do you actually evaluate and assess that what is right and what is wrong, and how you actually critique? Most of your journal clubs and presentations eventually revolve around this. Okay. Do not accept anything because I said so. Even today, do not follow what I told because I'm saying this on a platform. Okay. Go back, introspect, and re-examine things. Okay. Appraise evidence to address the basic issues of the oral and public health for individuals. Like I said, you must not accept anything on the face of it. There's a very interesting saying which comes to my mind at this point of time. It goes like this. Okay. Science tells us what it is rather than what we think it is. All right. I'll just repeat this. Science tells us what it is rather than what we think it is. How do we face the dogma of various assumptions or various hypotheses or something which has not been tested? Okay. It's not about relating to your own echo chambers, but actually unequivocally you're appraising the evidence which is out there in the population, right? So you're looking through your journals, you're looking through various publications and articles. You must be having the ability to critique, and critical thinking and critical development is, let's say, one of the fundamentals of modern science. Okay. And here we're dealing with public health information. So tomorrow, if you were to implement a certain treatment protocol, a certain intervention for an entire population, you must have that ability to go through that. And that is the reason why even during your post-graduation, you're given so much of emphasis on why we have to evaluate evidence, critical synthesis, and then eventually evaluate and then reflect onto the evidence. All right. So ability to critique is in fact a major aspect. Finally, research, right? Now, conducting research. Okay. Like I said, this is one of the most fundamental aspects of your public health dentistry, because you have to be in a position to conduct experiments, to conduct research, which are important for the greater good of the population. All right. So take up issues like literacy, take up issues like epidemiological transition and the common oral health conditions or the prevalence of disease. Whatever you're doing is to address the oral and public health problems. And that is why at the heart of it, if you look at the core tenets of public health dentistry, research becomes one of the fundamental areas where we are expected to be having a certain amount of proficiency. Like I said, it's always better to know than to assume. All right. And research actually gives us this enlightenment. Okay. So we might think that this is because of this and that's how things are happening, but it's always better to go and find out, right? And this whole finding, in fact, research has it in its word that you are actually rekindling or re-researching whatever is out there. And that's the reason how public health dentists are expected to conduct the research. Finally, all right, this is something I think most of us are probably not working towards, which is, I would say, there is a pressing need for this development terms in terms of, integrating the social determinants of health into DPH practice. All right. So dental public health practice here, we have to understand that it's not just biological state or immediate factors which are influencing. Okay. And these are the things which we usually oversee when it comes to your case history taking and all of these things. All right. We fail to understand that it is time that we integrate the social determinants into every aspect of DPH, all right, dental public health. Because let's understand the fact that there is nothing more universal in this world as when it comes to health and disease. Okay. If an entire population is healthy, it's because of certain life choices, certain environmental factors, and social factors. Okay. And if a certain population is diseased, it does not happen in isolation. It does happen only because of the social factors, or a huge, matter of fact, because of the environment in which the certain person is living. All right. So there is nothing more universal than health and disease. So it's a matter of fact that we integrate these social determinants of health and oral health into our day-to-day practice and then come up to the whole ideal atmosphere. So these were all your sessions, like topics which were related to, from the beginning. I'd just like to quickly run through that. I hope you could just take home these points when it comes to the competencies. Okay. Ability to manage, your ability to evaluate various systems, demonstrate a certain level of ethical decision making. Okay. You actually able to design a surveillance system to measure all these determinants, your ability to communicate. Okay. Like I said, on major oral and public health issues, you're going to have to lead on various initiatives and collaborations, advocate, stand up for what is right, okay, and push for it. Critique, again, like I said, most of the information out there, make sure you evaluate them, weigh them out on their merits and pros and cons and come to it, and conduct research on what is extremely important, and finally integrate your determinants of health. If I have to put everything together, right, there's a very interesting analogy here which I'd like to share with all of you, and this is, I would say, a mixture of all of these things. Okay. So if you look back in the last 30-40 minutes, whatever I've shared with all of you here is the 21st century public health dentist. All right. He has to have a mix of all these things. I have put in some pictures of Robin Hood and Machiavelli and all of them here. But if you look at this, at the heart of it, we are supposed to be practicing a certain level of ideals and virtues in life, right? Principles. Now, of course, Don Quixo's Miguel de Cervantes' popular, novel, which goes about idealism, that that we living in an ideal society where everything is functioning on rules and regulations, and people live by their own virtues. So you have to be an idealist at heart, okay? But like I said, there's always a but here. How practical and how effective it's going to be in the real world, you need the strategy. Okay. And when it comes to strategy, I think none other than Machiavelli's political strategy, or you can take our local our example of Chanakya Niti. All right. So you need to strategize because you have to fulfill your aims and objectives through a strategy which is the need of the hour. Okay. And of course, you have the Robin Hood approach, or you can say the the Dabang or the Chulbul Pandey approach of redistributive justice. Okay. It's always about providing to the have-nots. So there has to be equitable distribution of resources. You have to, take from the rich and tax the rich and provide to this thing. And this is basically a socialist principle, right? So the concept of redistributive justice, and I would, have this very funny example of how Robin Hood does it in his cartoon series. Yes. So you got to be a little bit of Robin Hood as well. And finally, the 21st century symbol of science, none other than Albert Einstein, right? Now, he stood for something which talks about rationality, about evidence, and about how your public health measures have to be backed by science. So this is an example which I would like to apply to the 21st century public health dentist and say that you also have to follow the principles of Einstein and make sure that you are representing a symbol of science, okay? Where there's rationality, where there is, more of evidence-based strategy and all of these things. So all of this put together, the idealism, the strategy, the redistributive justice, and symbol of science is what it takes for us to consider ourselves as a public health dentist. So now, guys, I think it's time all of you introspect on whatever points have been shared with you so far, and look back, and think that, do you have it in you? If you do, what are the areas which you need to work upon, and what are the areas which you can actually find in detail? And let me also put a small disclaimer that this is in no means the definitive way of looking at this. Okay, this is just my perspective and how I've been read and influenced by various material which I've come across, and this is just a little bit of microcosm of what I'd like to present to all of you today. So those were my thoughts for today evening. I think let me just open up the house for discussion. All right. So let's have some thoughts from the people here. Yes, I think I'll start with Dr. Suman sir. Yeah, yes, Suman sir.
Hello, Denzy. Wonderful
Yes, sir.
to hear you after a long, long time. I actually joined in late for the program. But what I understood by the caption that you have given, if you ask me to put in my experiences, what I have actually seen in many of the colleges, I'm not sure whether to put it on this platform or not, is public health dentistry is being, it's uh, it's not considered as a clinical branch, and that is the reason why people are not joining post graduation in public health dentistry in most of the colleges. Even if they join, for the first time, I heard this year, even public health dentistry is going without any fees in Rajasthan, the place where I work. Now, how to actually make it interesting is one of the subject which you have enlightened. So I thought, now, if you ask my words, how actually to put, why can't we make more dental services or bring in more dental services at the grassroots level? People, most of the majority of the colleges have postgraduate facilities. Many of them are doing very good work at rural centers. But there are many other colleges who are actually not doing grassroots level dental services. Undergraduate colleges which do not have PG program, they are actually not at all doing any dental services at the grassroots level. Even if we are having a mobile dental unit, even if we are conducting camps, these sort of services are just screening based and education based programs. Now, you conduct a dental camp. I'm just giving you my perspective. Please understand, I'm just giving you my perspective. You conduct a dental camp, you come to know about the needs of the population, then you understand the population's oral health is very poor, but the population do not have much of the resources to meet up to their needs, nor the person who has coordinated for the activity has got the resources, nor the government takes step to fill in this gap. As an institutional based service, what can we do? Now, as you mentioned, you said about communicating about the needs of the population. Yes, it's very, very important that you communicate about the needs of the population. But who is actually going to take care of the delivery of oral health services? When I joined public health dentistry, I always thought this is something that the rural population actually needed, and I was supposed to go and give my services. But the support system, which I have seen in majority of the colleges, I've gone to plenty of colleges, the support system for the public health dentistry department is very, very low. Very low. So how actually can we give out some ideas to improve these services? Some years back, of course, the postgraduate institutions have got adaptation of schools and adaptation of villages. How many of them are actually doing the service? One, those who do not have adaptation, those who do not have a PG program, we are conducting camps, but the services is a big question mark. So can we make compulsory now? Understand that even the clinical branches, undergraduate students are not having even 20% of the quota being fulfilled. 20% is actually a big number in many of the dental colleges because of the lack of patients. As public health dentists, if the colleges support us, if you can make compulsory procedures as quota based in rural health care, then definitely with the exposure that we have for oral health programs, we can efficiently manage these programs. Of course, you require very good management skills. This can be done by giving good exposure to the students. Once you give good exposure, Definitely, evaluation should take place. The evaluation can be done through a feedback analysis. Even if a student has done, say, bare minimum of 2 or 3 patients or homes in the grassroots level, in his whole community posting at the village level, if he can do a feedback analysis after 1 month, 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, his clinical, just like how you mentioned about clinical audit, his clinical skills are likely to improve, and our audit also in terms of services also is likely to improve. This is one thing which I feel most of the colleges should start by bringing in services, by exposing students to rural health services, mainly by giving a quota, not by just conducting education or screening camps. Of course, most of the departments, we are actually training the students very well in indices, in oral health programs, in oral health performers, all these things. But when it comes to services, it may be just an education, maybe just a screening. Most of us, if we can help them in getting exposure in the rural areas, because colleges are not having sufficient patients, if they are exposed to patients in the rural areas, definitely many of them will think about joining this branch as postgraduate student. This is my way, one thing. And the second thing is, when it comes to research, what do we actually talk about when it comes to research? We are conducting biostatistics classes. We are conducting research methodology classes. How many of them? Maybe 3-4 biostatistics classes, 1 or 2 research methodologies. Of course, we cover up epidemiology much before. But when it comes to application, majority of the students who have joined other streams, when we talk to them, their application of research methodology and biostatistics is very, very low. So can the IA PhD bring about the practice of exposing UG students by having a continuous free SPSS training courses online regularly being conducted, maybe on a monthly or bi-monthly or 6 months or 12. At least they should, SPSS should be, any person who logs into the website of the IA PhD, they should be able to deliver, he should be able to get in some knowledge about SPSS. What are we doing? We are just training them about the theoretical aspects of biostatistics, the theoretical aspects of research methodology. Let us give them now. SPSS is a very beautiful platform where many of them will actually get real exposure. This exposure should come as a course content in the public health dentistry department, because it's well versed. People have been using it since more than 2 decades. Application can be done, but the delivery is very, very poor, especially for UG students. And those students who are joining PGs and other programs, sorry to tell this, their application skills on SPSS, or most of them have not even heard of this. So I think in these 2 areas, if I had to deliver, I've given the power, differently, I would look at it in this way. Thank you, Denzy. I hope I put in my points. Application.
Thank you. I think you've touched upon very, very relevant aspects. So I think when it comes to services, I absolutely second that thought of making it mandatory, and or rather not even mandatory. I mean, it should become very essential for undergraduates to train in terms of providing services. And like I said, we have 300 plus colleges. We don't even need a PG program to be set up everywhere. We have about 80 or 90 colleges with post graduation. But irrespective of that fact, if we could just focus more on delivery of services, I think that would hugely change the way how people or students perceive public health dentistry. Once you get in train, and let's look at it this way, sir. Like, we already have the whole of dentistry in our field. So all this myth and notion of not clinical nonsense, all that does not exist anymore. We have to break in all that and say that now we're bringing the whole of dentistry to the whole of population. And I think effectively by creating a system of robust functioning of rural healthcare centers, and I'm sure that colleges would be very, very interested in this because it will naturally improve their patient inflow to the hospitals, to the colleges. And we're looking at 300 dental institutions across the country. If the PhD department is made more robust and dynamic in setting up and managing these rural health centers or peripheral dental health centers, I think that will go a long way in changing the notion. And most of the students need to have a clear demarcated timetable even when it comes to the internship program. Like you suggested, maybe these many hours of training and these many hours of provision of services, comprehensive dental care, and so on and so forth. So that is an absolutely valid point. I think that really adds value to our discussion today. About the second point you mentioned, so I think
I'm sorry to interrupt, Denzy.
Yeah, please.
I'm saying it's application of the services. It's not.
Right.
You should make sure that every UG student at least get exposed. Maybe bare minimum of 2-3 patients. Bare minimum of 2-3 patients. People are posted in the clinical branches, and their exposure is very, very less than. I don't want to quote anything, but it's very less exposed because they're lacking patients, and this can be taken up as a major core area by making, sorry that I've also used the word compulsory, but there is no option. Unless we do it this way, then only I think people will start getting an interest. They will go out, and colleges will have some support mechanism by saying, yes, it's there in their body. The council is saying this, so that's why it's compulsory for us to take them. It's very, very different in the medical setup, but in dental setup, it's just most of it is on paper, but application should be there. According to me, application should be there.
True, sir. Yeah. Also, sir, and the second point Dr. Sumant sir raised was again inclusion of the SPSS skills as an independent program in the undergraduate curriculum. I think that's also a very, very very good idea in terms of the utility and the scale at which we require to use this. So I think that's also something which hopefully we will take notice and add on to our specialty. Thank you, Suman sir. That was really encouraging and that was really supportive, and someone who's from quite a senior in a specialty, for sharing your thoughts and adding value to the discussion. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Denzy. Thank you.
Yes. I'd now like to go on to Dr. Anita ma'am, so that if she could share her thoughts on what is the need of the hour and how are we supposed to address the issues at hand. Yes, Anita ma'am.
I will, good evening, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Denzy. I will put across the challenges that we are facing in the nutshell. First, we do not know how to identify the problem. If I can say that very audaciously, what we do is we are busy finding the solution without knowing the problem. So that is one thing. For example, I'll tell you, we are all presuming that all school children have dental caries. Let us treat. That's the problem we are presuming, and we are going ahead with the solution in pocket without identifying the problem. I feel that's the first problem with us. We don't know how to identify or define the problem per se. Well, this actually indeed, when I attended a workshop with design thinking, KPMG in Bangalore, when they gave example of, I requested them to take up dental related issues only. And we had to discuss simple, at par with the industry 4.0 revolution. Are we able to identify what is the problem? When they asked me, I was very bold and overconfidently I stated, oh, school children have dental caries. That's the problem they face commonly. And then they said, okay, you have evidence, but situationally, are you fine? Are you true evidence based that in India the situation is same? So is the problem that you have identified is the problem? Does it fall into the top 10 priorities or the issues of these people, what they are facing in day-to-day life? When they said, I was like taken aback. So what we did was we interviewed a few children over phone, and we found out that they don't have dental health at all in the top 10 issues. So problem identification is something which I believe is the first challenge that we face as a dental public health professional. Second one is positioning. we are not aware about how do we position ourselves, where do we position ourselves. Are we, for example, we are in the academic colleges, let us say. We are assuming that our job description is going and taking classes for UGs, PGs, extensive and in-depth discussion, and look out for some MOUs, collaborations over. If some other college is doing the same thing, copy them without understanding what we need to portray as an issue in the ways that the external audience actually will act or take relevant decisions needed. So positioning is the second challenge I feel we are facing with us presently. Third one is coalition building. Coalition building is we all look at people, if you want to have MOUs, suddenly we will jump and we will tell, oh, we want somebody who will just come and have an MOU, sponsor our programs and things like that, without understanding that first the temporary relationship can only happen, after which there will be a permanent relationship that they will budge for, they will be ready to share whatever. So forging alliances not only with the within the country or a state, we should look out for external actors, particularly not only within, so I'm repeating that, not only in the country, outside the country. If that is not possible, at least outside health sector to begin with. So, and the last and very important one is governance. So I repeat, the first one is we have problem with problem identification. Second one is positioning as a public health. Third one is coalition building, and the last one is governance. See, we are all working in the established institutions. Okay, but what do we give a collective action? Does it fall into the top three priorities that which the present health system is defining for us? That kind of a mapping or a matching is not happening. Okay, so I think these are the key issues that we are presently facing as a challenge, and this needs to be, addressed. And when nothing works, I feel policy is something which can play a very key role. And once they put things in policy, everything will act. As simple as when I say policy, 20% of all the questions that comes in the entrance exams will involve the data, just like civil services exams. And if that is made mandatory in NEET or something like that, they will definitely think about, they will bother, of course, about reading the software, about biostatistics and whatnot. How they have specifically defined the syllabus for civil services, they should define the syllabus for us also. There is no specific policies in those areas. Second one, when they do NAC accreditation or when they do any kind of an accreditation, indeed, they should come up with some kind of key or action points for the institution. Within the circle area of these many kilometers, mandatory one village adoption, mandatory 10 school adoption, mandatory 5 factories or industry areas adoption. So, if at all they come up with some kind of a policy like that, and out of any health programs, these are the 4 or 5 programs that we have to cater to. It will be running. There is no proper interlink between the public and the private sector. I think that is one, that we need to look at. So this policy level is one very important thing. I feel, we are failing miserably. If some action is taken up by Modi ji tomorrow, I'm not propaganding anything for him or as such, but I feel, some policy level changes tomorrow, things will definitely change for us. And after having been spoken so much of, mega thoughts and things like that, I would put it in a nutshell: think global, act local. Simple. Start from where you are, take up simple things, document it, put it in some terms, and then you put it to the world in the form of a publication or presentation. For example, let us say I'm doing health education program for a set of school children to the nearby place. And I'm not aware what is happening in the other colleges. It's okay, absolutely fine. All that I can do is diligently take it up, structure that health education that we are providing, standardize it based on the global health standards or evidence or whatever placed, and then put it across to some kind of media or publication or presentation or whatever, and put it, repeated attempts must be made where we can have that, PPP, where there will be awareness created to different sectors. So and come up with some internship programs where our manpower is exposed to what is the kind of work structure they have. For example, now let us say we have a health minister here, next to see Sudhakar. Dr. Sudhakar is the health minister now. But how does he function being from medical background? He might be facing challenges in the two dialects. One, he being a professional, what are the idealistic things? And the second one, how is that political system, how are they incorporating health component into it? So if at all the some kind of internships or awareness are created and mutually exchanged, okay, and it is made policy level mandatory things, I think it works. So the for an Indian situation, policy is something which is very important and needs to be acted upon. And very very important, we have to start from where we are and make the presence felt. Probably with that it will make a lot of difference, rather than we are not good at documenting. So once you start documenting and putting it across to the global world, I think that's a good start point and it makes a lot of sense.
Thank you so much, Anita ma'am, for those thoughts. I think that will definitely lead to a lot of conversations going, right from emphasizing to identifying the exact problem, identifying the elephant in the room, to uh, describing policies, because a policy always puts people into action, gives them a definitive goal to combine approach this. I think your valuable suggestions were really very important and should get us all thinking, and last of all, get all of us started from where we are presently. Thank you, Dr. Rita ma'am there. Yes, Dr. Sumant. Yes, Sumant.
Very nice of Anita to have put forth these points. Nice to hear about her. But just my thought is, we are now, you said about problem identification, going to the population and finding out whether they have a problem, and then bringing about a policy. Theoretically, ideally, what you have said is actually very, very right. This is very good for countries which have sufficient resources wherein application can be done. But just understand, in a country like India, where oral health is given hardly any importance, everybody knows that the population's oral health is poor. If you go and conduct a program, you do an education program, you do a screening program, when it comes to the assessment, you will understand Indian population will not respond unless you do services. Unless we do services, then they have an interest and there will be large crowds. Exposure can be given. But if you are more idealistic, thinking more about policy, ideally what you have said is fantastic. I'm not going against it. But if you keep waiting for these things to happen, it's going to take many, many more decades. If you want transition to take place, transition can take place only when, in a country like India, delivery should start. Delivery of services. If people, even if 10 people are satisfied when you go out for a program because you have treated their problem, your program is going to be more successful. Your institution, your department is going to be more, they will definitely remember your department, your team. My way is, my perspective is putting it this way. Going too much theoretical, yes, it's good for this discussion, everything. But when it comes to application, what I've said before, I think should keep in mind. That's my viewpoint, Denzy. Thank you.
Right, so I think, yes, ma'am, please
Those
respond.
points, sir. Thank you so much for that point. Here, I would like to place one example: midday meal. Okay, So when this was started in a way back 1982 by MGR in Tamil Nadu, it was a lot of people laughed at him. Okay, why is that, midday meal concept is started and it's not going to work? There was a lot of criticism that he faced. And believe it or not, he ended up feeding around 60 plus lakhs children. And then he found out that it works and children will start turning up. Look at the impact there, the number worked. There he did not bother where, how I'm a politician and whether it's going to work or not. He knew that, the essential problem with the children who doesn't want to come to school is not that they don't want to get educated. It's just that, and he didn't even bother whether it's developing country or developed country or whatever. It's just that he just had a thought, okay, children don't turn up to school, let me find out what is the problem. And he went and he found out that if one of the meal taken care, just roughly he started over and he started feeding. It took at least 2.5 decades for him to, see a lot of turnaround of children to the school. And today it has worked. And this is the model which is copied throughout the country today. And midday meal is something, huge hit. And that during pandemic, a lot of children have actually, faced the problem, not because the school is closed, but because the meal that they have missed. And there are a lot of studies now they have done, and they have found out that during pandemic, the children wanted to come to school majorly for meal. And education was taken care automatically. The one of the primary need, is addressed. So I feel he started from where he was, and he would always. I have seen a few speeches and all. He never differentiated between developing or developed country. He said, "Na abdiye shuru panne, paakla enna aavu, polam." And that is that, one thought of change that makes a huge difference.
True, ma'am. I think what you shared, the example of the midday meal, I think it's about realizing the basic need of the population. Now, here in case, it was having provision of a good, nutritious meal a day. And education just happened to benefit from that in terms of the enrollment ratios and reduction in the dropouts. So I think when we are doing something like this in public health, where it affects the larger population, I think that's also important to be taken care of. Anyways, thank you so much, Dr. Anita ma'am, Dr. Suman sir, for your thoughts. I think this has really enriched the value of our discussion today. I'd like to quickly go on to Dr. Ashna here, someone who is again trying out new ways of digitizing the way public health dentists position themselves. Yes, Ashna, your thoughts on the session today? Yeah.
It was a wonderful session, sir. I get a lot of insights from your session today. And I think very nicely you have collated all the points and the skills that are required. And I would just like to say that the topic of the session today was, do you have it in you? एंड डू यू हैव इट इन यू, ये तो हमें इंटर्नशिप में सोचना पड़ेगा पब्लिक हेल्थ डेंटिस्ट्री की पीजी करने से पहले. वंस यू आर इनटू द पब्लिक हेल्थ डेंटिस्ट्री पीजी, यू शुड हैव इट इन यू, because these are the skills that are required for public health dentistry. अगर नहीं है तो बॉस काम नहीं चल सकता. So either you hone these skills or you develop these skills while you're PG or after your public health dentistry. I think that's what is required for all these skills. Definitely amalgamation of all these skills are required in a public health dentist. And yeah, as rightly you said that I'm into digital this thing. So I just like to say that the world is digital right now. So I think the sooner we get this public health dentistry on a digital platform, on a wider platform, and get people together, I think it will benefit the branch as a whole, and it will benefit the people as a whole. That is all I would like to add, sir.
Thank you so much, Ashna. I think for your thoughts, we would be really happy. And I just had to inform that we'll be having Ashna in one of our sessions where she'll be throwing more light on how she has tried to digitize the whole public health dentistry scene for us, and more on that coming up in the next month. Quickly, I'd like to go to Dr. Ariba here. Dr. Ariba, postgraduate student, what are your thoughts on this, and how would you like to go about making this effective? Yeah.
Good evening, sir. Good evening, ma'am. It was a wonderful session, and there were many points which came into my mind. And I'm very happy that I logged in today. I was doing something and I thought ki, there's a session. So now I know that there are many things which we should like do, and there are many skills which I think as a postgraduate student I lack. So I'll definitely work on those skills. Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Alipa. Like I said, this was in no way to make you feel that you're lacking in one of these skills. It's just about knowing your strengths and playing to them. All right. So all of us, yes, we do have something that we relate to it. I think we should just work on that and bring out the best in each of us. Thank you all so much for joining in this session today. I think it's been a fantastic experience discussing with seniors in the fraternity as well. Thank you so much, Suman sir. Thank you, Anita ma'am. Thank you, Ashna, for being there and sharing your thoughts on today's session. And that's a wrap for today's session of PhD 101, where we discussed about what it takes to become a public health dentist in the 21st century. And like I say, we need to redefine competencies. We need to work towards this and bring about transformative changes in the curriculum. And most of all, I think it's about survival of the smartest. And our field is no exception to that. I think we like to put it this way and make sure that we get the best out of the worlds together. Thank you all so much. Wish you all a very, very happy Deepavali. Enjoy your festivities, stay at home, and we see you soon on Sunday with our rendezvous session, where we'll be having a guest from Public Health Dentistry who's ventured into various fields. Dr. Swapnil Bum will be there on Sunday to share his thoughts and his journey. So we'll see you on Sunday. Bye bye, everyone. Goodbye and good night.